Namaste everybody, and thank you so much for joining me in this live session and the final part of how to awaken your mind. So in Buddhism we have a thing called the 3 traits of existence. So one part of that is about impermanence, and we've spoken about that in a past episode. The other is about suffering or having discontentment in our life, and we've spoken about that in a previous episode as well. So today I'm going to finish off with the 3rd part, which is the most difficult part, and it's a part that I've spoken about before, but we need to keep talking about it and keep thinking about it, because the more we think about it, the more that we talk about it, then hopefully the more it will make sense to you. So I'm going to start off with just asking you a question. Who are you? Now, maybe if I ask that question to you, maybe you'll say that, well, I'm this. I'm an engineer, I'm a doctor, or I'm a housewife, or I'm a cook. You would tell me a little bit about the work you do. But that's not who you are. That's just the work you do. So maybe you'll say, okay, then I was born in this country and I have this nationality, but that is just where you were born. That's not who you are. That's just the place where you was born. You might tell me about your religion, but again, your religion is just something you follow. It's just your belief system. It isn't who you are, it's just what you believe. So then you may say, okay, then I'm my body. But if we look at the body is forever changing. The body changes moment by moment. Our cells are dying off and new cells are coming into play. Our skin is coming off, our hair is coming out. So all of these things are forever changing. So then this body can't be us. And look at the body you were born with, this little baby, and look at you now. So you have totally changed. So then we can't say that you are your body. So then maybe you'll say then, okay, I'm my thoughts. But we have around 60,000 thoughts a day. Which thought are you? Which one are you going to pick out and say, oh yeah, that thought is me? You probably pick out a good and positive, compassionate thought. But our thoughts change moment to moment. So we can't hold on and say, that thought is who I am. And the same for our emotions. Our emotions are up and down and up and down. So again, throughout the day we have so many different emotions we go through. We can't pick one emotion and say, oh, that is me, that is who I am. And our perceptions, the way that we perceive the world, changes all the time. We meet new people, we get new knowledge, we start changing, we start seeing things completely differently. So then even our perceptions are not who we are. You could say then the mind is who I am, but the mind is just a process that goes on in your brain. So that isn't who you are. So who are you? You see, there is no solid, permanent, autonomous you. There is something that is there that is forever changing, flowing like a river, in constant flux, but there isn't something solid that you can say is you. Now, we have this illusion of a self, and that's all it is. It's an illusion. There is no solid, permanent you. You're just changing moment by moment. The problem with this illusion is that it is so ingrained in us that it's hard for us to even think that there is no self. I mean, it's so difficult for us to actually think about that point, because it is so ingrained in us. Everything we do, it's I, it's me, it's mine. So the way we talk, the way we act, the way we hold on to things just gives us this sense that there is this self. But there we've just seen there isn't. There's just lots of things that are forever changing, forever moving. And those that we're trying to hold on to and try to say that it's a self. Just because we fix a name to ourselves, just because we fix this identity to ourselves, it doesn't mean that we are a permanent, solid, independent self. That is just a name we're giving ourselves. So we can't really ask that question, who am I? Because who are you at this moment? Now the next moment you're somebody else, and the next moment something else. Things are changing, changing, changing. So there is nothing to hold on to, nothing to grab hold of there and say that it is a solid self. You see, this is where Buddhism is completely different to all other types of religion, because they talk about a soul, and they talk about going on, your soul goes from life to life and is permanent. And whereas in Buddhism we don't talk about that at all. We don't believe in this soul. We are just an ever-changing entity. So you may say then, okay, if that's true, then who is here sitting watching this video? But I would say that that is the wrong question. The who question, who is experiencing this video, is the wrong question to be asking. The question we should say, how? How are we experiencing this video? How will we experience what's going on here? So the how is what we call the 5 aggregates. So these are 5 processes that go on to help us experience the world. So this is how the world is experienced. This is not you, it's just the way the world is experienced. So the 5 processes are form, feeling, perceptions, responses, and the flow of our consciousness. So let me put that into a story so it's easier for us to understand. So we have a form. So that form is outside of us, and that form could be something we can see, something we can smell, something we can taste or hear, or we can touch. So we have that form. Then we have our eyes, our nose, our mouth, our ears, and our touch, our hands, our touch, that our consciousness, we pick up that. So say we have a form and the eye picks it up and it sends it to the eye consciousness. At this point, the eye consciousness does not know what that form is. It is just conscious, it's just aware that at this moment there is this form here. So your nose will pick up a smell, and your nose consciousness will know that at the moment I'm aware that there is a smell. I'm aware there's a taste. I'm aware there's a sound. I'm aware there's something we're touching. So your consciousness here is only an awareness. So we have a form, and now we have an awareness of that form. So then we have our perceptions. So now at this point we start to perceive that, yes, this is round and it's like this high and it has a handle on it, so it must be a mug. So these perceptions are what we've learned. Somebody has told us this shape here is a mug, this shape here is an apple, this is a car, this is a house, this is a dog. We have learned that these shapes mean this. And so those concepts and those perceptions we pick up at this point. So we have a form, our consciousness is aware of it, and now our perceptions start to give it shape, start to tell us what it is. And once we've got that perception of what it is, then a feeling starts to arise in us. Now we have 3 different types of feelings. So we have a feeling of pleasure, a feeling of displeasure, and a neutral feeling. We don't care one way or the other. And then once we have that feeling, then we have a response. We respond to that form. But only when these five come together can the world be experienced. The only way we experience everything in the world is through these five processes. So here, two things to remember. One is that they are forever changing. They're not solid, they're not permanent. Your form that you see, you smell, you taste, you hear, you touch are changing all the time. Your perceptions are changing all the time. Your responses to these are changing. Your feelings are changing. So these five processes are not solid, and they are not a self. They are not you. They're just how the world is experienced. So let me put it into a story, make it a little bit easier there. So let's say the form is that we have is a house. So we have this house. That's the form we have. And then our consciousness, our eyes pick up this form and send it to our eye consciousness. And our eye consciousness now is aware that there is this form. It has no idea what it is, but it's aware that there in front of us is this form. So then our perception, because we've been taught that this shape here is a house, then our perceptions perceive this as a house. Now, if you like this house, then the next point, the feeling we would have is a real pleasant feeling. I like that house. If you dislike that house, then somebody's saying that it's complicated. It is, but stay with me. So if you dislike that house, then you'll have an unpleasant feeling. And if you don't care either way about the house, you'll have a neutral feeling. So once we've had that feeling, then we have the response. And our response is, if we like the house, we'll stand and look at it. If we dislike the house, we'll turn away from it. If we don't care, we'll see the house and move on. So first of all, we have a form, and then the consciousness picks up that form. We then perceive that form of whatever it is. Then from whatever we've perceived it to be, we have a feeling, and from that feeling, we have our response, our actions. And this is how the world is experienced. It's not I am experiencing the world. It's how it's experienced, and it's experienced through these five processes. I know that it may be difficult to understand, but I'll put this video out onto YouTube tomorrow for you to listen. Keep going back, keep going back. The penny will drop. You'll understand that everything, every experience you have comes through these five processes. There is no experience outside these five processes. So I'd ask you a bit later on, when you have time, to sit and think about an experience and see if you can fit that experience into these five processes, because it's from that, from looking at these an experience that you've had and breaking it down into those five experiences, that then now you understand. So say we have a lovely plate of food. There, that's the form. And our consciousness, our eye consciousness, and even our nose and has picked it up, and but we don't know what it is. But then we start to perceive it as food. And of course, we like food. So then we have a real pleasant feeling. And the action that we do after that, we eat the food. So I would say to you, just think about this. Just pick an experience that you've had recently and then try to break it down into these five processes. And you will understand that this is how you experience the world. It may be a little complicated and it may be deep, but it is important that we learn it. Why is it important? I know many people ask that question. Why is it so important that we have to understand that there is no solid, permanent, independent self? And The only way that we can experience the world is through these 5 processes. It's important because when we think we have this solid self, it produces this I, this me, this is mine. It starts to make us selfish, have desires, get attached to things, start hating things, ill will, pride, jealousy, all this egotism, all comes from this being a sense of self. Because you think that you have this self, when somebody attacks it, we have to protect ourselves. So we start to see this sense of self, that if somebody says something bad to me, I have to protect it. If somebody does something bad to me, I have to protect it. If you understand there is no solid you, you're just flowing like a river. If you understand that, then there is no you to get upset about. There's no you, because whatever they said to you at that moment, now there's another moment and a different moment. Now we've started to move on. So this illusion of a self is really one of the major roots of all of our suffering. Because we believe that this is me, this is Yeshe here, and I've got to protect Yeshe. And if somebody does anything against Yeshe, I have to fight. And if somebody tries to take something from me, it is mine. It belongs to me. So you can see how we start to, get this suffering because we believe in ourselves. Why we believe in this ourselves is because we only pay attention to the surface of our experience. We don't delve into our experience. And if you look at those 5 processes, it will help you to start delving into your experiences instead of just seeing the surface. And we always just take the surface and then we make it into a big story, and then this big story turns into another big story, and we have to protect ourselves, and it's all because we're just on the surface of experiences. We're not going deep. So somebody said that this is very deep. It is, and we need to be going deep, because if we start to go deep, there is no need for attachment and hatred and jealousy and pride. There is nothing to be proud about. There is nothing to be jealous about. There is nothing to get attached to. So when we think we have this solid self and somebody attacks us, we just think that is a threat to us. And that is where fear comes from. We have fear of death, fear of losing things, fear of people not liking us. All of that fear is coming from us thinking that we are a solid, independent, autonomous self. If we don't have that, if we understand we are not that. So I don't want you to go away from here and think that I've said there is no you and you don't exist. I am not saying that. I'm just saying you don't exist in the way you think you do. You think that you are solid. You think that you have a self. You think that is you. You're autonomous. You're independent. You have a self. You have a soul, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just saying to you, you don't. And I'm not going against other people's religions here or other people's belief, but what I am saying to you is think about it. Because when we hold on to a sense of self, when we hold on to this idea that we have a soul and a permanent soul that goes from life to life, we are causing ourselves huge amount of suffering. Okay, it may feel good to us to know that when I die, then me goes into another me, and then after that in another me and another me, but that is only there to make you feel good. If you look at it logically, realistically, there is no solid you to go from life to life. You are this in this life. You experience your life through these 5 processes. So if we believe in a sense of self, it is setting ourselves up for failure. we're starting to look for things and we're starting to fail because we are trying to defend the indefensible here. We're trying to hold on to something that is moving. It is trying to hold on to a river that is flowing fast. How can we? We can't do that. So we are setting ourselves up for failure. So I would say to you to just think about what we've spoken about here. If you want to awaken your mind, you must start to understand that this is not a solid you. If you can do that, and if you can also understand impermanence, that everything is impermanent and everything is forever changing, and if you can understand that life actually brings suffering, that discontentment, dissatisfaction, even the happy times, don't last, and they turn into unhappy times, and then we go back to happy times. So there is this thread of suffering, and a lot of that suffering we cause ourselves, and one way of causing it is thinking that things are impermanent and getting attached to them, and the other is thinking that you are permanent, getting attached to yourself and getting pride and anger and hatred and selfishness, all of those things. We're causing that suffering ourselves. When you drop that suffering, the mind will start to awaken. When your mind starts to awaken, it means you start to see things the way they really are, not the way you want them to be, or not the way that you think they are, but the way they actually are. And the whole of our life is like an illusion. The whole of our life is like a dream. We think when we get up in the morning, we wake up and we're in reality, but actually we're just in a different dream, because we are not seeing things the way they actually are. And we need to sit down quietly, and we need to think about all of these points that I've covered in these 10 episodes about awakening your mind. Because once you start to awaken your mind, you start to open it up. And when you open it up and you get rid of all your biases and all your misunderstandings, then you truly awaken. And it is at that point that you will drop all of this suffering. We don't have to die to actually let go of our suffering. We don't have to die to awaken our mind. We just have to follow these things that I've been speaking about in these episodes, and you will get to a point where slowly but surely you're reducing your suffering. As that suffering goes down, the mind awakens. It's so difficult when we're suffering and when we're stuck in this huge illusion for our mind to really waken up. So by just slowly letting go, understanding the way the world is, trying to be the most compassionate person we can, and understanding impermanence and attachment and non-self, then slowly that mind will awaken. So I wish you all the best in awakening your mind. Remember, you can do that. Yeah, we can really do this. This is not something that we have to die to do. It's not something we have to pay money to do. It's not something that we have to expect somebody to come and just do it for us. We can do this ourselves. It's all completely in your hands. How wonderful that is. So, thank you. I hope you start to awaken your minds, because then all of that suffering will just drop away. And that's what I want for all of you, to be free from this suffering, and then to find true happiness, which is inside of us. So thank you so much for being with me through these 10 episodes. I hope you've learned a lot. I hope you'll have time to sit and think about it. And I look forward to seeing you again when I do some more episodes. Namaste.